I'm Susan Goldman Rubin, and I wrote Give Us the Vote, Over 200 Years of Fighting for the Ballot, published by Holiday House. When my editor asked me to do this book, I said, I don't know anything about voting rights in America. So that's when I had to go out and learn and look for good stories. Some of the stories I found were amazing about the crimes committed. For instance, voting from the grave is one of the chapters. To win an election, corrupt gangs registered false names, including those of hundreds of dead people, and thugs actually went out and smashed and stole ballot boxes. A very funny story involved a prankster in St. Louis, Missouri, who registered his dog named Ritzy Meckler to vote. Ritzy didn't cast a ballot, but the story became widespread news about accusations of fraud. But then I found some very startling and disturbing information as I did research. I learned that there was racism in the suffrage movement. I had never known that African-American women were not only not welcome, but were sometimes not allowed to participate in parades and events during that long fight for the ballot. So it was a privilege for me to pay tribute to Mary Church Terrell, Ida B. Wells, and Elizabeth Piper Ensley, and to show as many pictures as I could of African-American suffragists. And I was amazed at how women suffered and were jailed simply because they demanded the right to vote. Of course, I had to tell about the Founding Fathers who met in Philadelphia the summer of 1787 and drew up the Constitution. But I thought beginning with them might turn off some of the readers. So I opened chapter 1 with telling about the Children's Crusade in Birmingham, Alabama in 1963, when kids not yet of voting age campaigned for their parents' right to vote. As one high school student said, we learned that the power of change was in the power of the ballot. And in a later chapter, I interviewed some young people who had cast their votes for the first time, and I asked them how they had made their choices. And curiously, some of the issues that concerned them a couple of years ago are still hot topics today. Coming back full circle, the book closes with the National School Walkout in 2018, when students nationwide skipped school and went out to protest gun violence and demand stricter laws. Once again, young people were making their voices heard, and they still are. Photo research was a huge part of doing this book. I used political cartoons, historic documents, vintage photographs, paintings, and portraits. One of the most gripping images, according to my kids, is a poster protesting forced feeding as a punishment for a suffragette who went on a hunger strike. She and many other suffragists here in America were imprisoned unjustly, and they refused to eat until they were released and won their case in court. I was thrilled to get in touch with some marvelous contemporary artists and photographers who generously made it possible for me to use their work in this book. Their pictures and photos from newspapers and sources such as the Alabama Department of Archives and History really tell the story. But the most dramatic part of the whole process of doing this book occurred right here in Malibu, where I lived. We had a wildfire, and on a moment's notice, the whole town had to evacuate. My son Andrew, who had helped me download all the many images for the book, saved the art by telling me to grab the hard drive before we left the house. I said to him, "What does it look like?" So he described it. I ran into my husband's home office, grabbed the hard drive, and we took it with us as we quickly fled. A day later, Andrew met me at the Apple store, helped me select a new laptop. He took it home and overnight downloaded all of my work, including the precious images for Give Us the Vote. My editor and I were overjoyed when we met at a conference later that week. We were practically in tears. So this book is dedicated to Andrew A. Rubin with gratitude. Holding it upside down. And my hope with this book is to inspire a new generation of young people to safeguard their precious, precious right to vote, and when they come of age and the time comes, to get out there and vote.